Today I'm going to show you how to model this using useful tricks and shortcuts, then texture your model and set up a final scene. So if you want to see how that's done, watch till the end. Let's hop in. So we're now in Blender and we're gonna actually use the default cube. Start by selecting it, and if you press tab, we're going to go in edit mode. We can see all the points. Right click to reverse. We can go back to object mode, and because the bun is smoother and not a cube, we're going to the modifiers tab and search for subdivision surface, this one, and we're gonna just go to around, let's say 2. But now if we go to edit mode, we can see we still have 8 points we can move around and edit our mesh. This is because we haven't applied our modifier. So let's just go to edit mode, select everything with A and scale it with S and Z on the Z axis. Control R to add a loop, or just select it from here. And we have something which kind of looks like a bun. To get rid of all these faces, we can right click and shade smooth. So we're gonna move it up a bit, and for the bottom bun we can shift D, Z to copy it under it. Going to the object properties, we can rotate it 180 degrees. So now I have 2 buns. Next I want to make the patty, so let's move this out the way a little bit. Shift A, cube, let's move it up. We see this is kind of boring, so let's just make it more detailed by going here, matte cap, and switching to this right here. You can check out all these options, but I prefer this one. And also turn on cavity, both, and move up kind of the ridge and valley. You can see what these do. For example, if we have a hole, you can see this adds more detail, right? So let's just undo that. Now let's just add a subdivision modifier again 2 times. Let's shade it smooth. We go to edit mode, A, S, Z. Now again with Control R, before clicking the left button we can scroll up twice, let's say. We have this shape that kind of looks like a patty. A, let's squish it up a bit more, and yeah, I feel like that's good. Next we're gonna make some letters. This time we're gonna start with a plane. Move it up. I want it to be kinda circular, but not a complete circle. So let's go tab, A, and with right click we can subdivide this, right? So let's subdivide this maybe 3 times like this. You see how I have this option here? Well, that's just easily done by going edit, preferences, add-ons, and searching for loop tools. So we can just enable this one. When we're in edit mode, we go to loop tools and circle, right? You see we now have a circle, but like I said, I don't want a full circle, a perfect one. So let's click on this arrow and maybe decrease it to around 50. We have this one, but we know lettuce is kind of junky and not flat. So gonna go to the modifiers and search for displace modifier. Now don't worry, we can create a new texture, and if we go to the textures tab, we can choose image or movie, but we don't have an image for this texture, so we're gonna create our own, which is easily done by going to clouds. And you can see now something has happened, but it looks kind of weird. So we're gonna just reduce the size and we can see how it looks, kind of janky. Alright, let's say here. And after that we can add subdivision surface to smooth this out. Maybe once it's alright. Shade smooth. And if you don't like this, we can reduce the size. If you want more detail, you can subdivide it once, but be careful to not go too much. You can also decrease the strength of these vertices, if it decreases, you can see how it's going flatter, and not so much if we increase this. Now don't forget to save your project, file, save as, and save it in a safe place. We can see it's still not thick but we can easily fix this by going to the modifiers and searching for solidify. You can see now it has added a bit of thickness, and you can change that by sliding this. Alright, this looks good. Next is the tomato, with which we're gonna improvise a bit. Okay, for this one we're gonna use circle this time, but with 16 vertices will be the best in this case. Move it up, and with E, or this option right here, we're gonna extrude and scale this to the middle, which we can type in 0. And since we now have a lot of vertices in the middle, you can see, we can reverse this by going A, M to merge, and by distance. We can see we've removed 15 vertices, and now we have only one. Select all these edges with this option here, or 2. The shortcuts is 1, 2 and 3. To add another loop, right click, subdivide. Now with Alt we can select a line of edges, so Alt and select this one, G 2 times, 1, 2, and this is a good place. Okay, now we can select every other edge in the middle and move them down like this. Okay, the outside edges, and extrude. Now we're gonna use a mirror modifier, which you're gonna encounter often. So we wanna mirror it under this line. So we're gonna go Alt S and cursor to select it, because we have selected all these edges, right? You can see it's in the middle of all these. Now you can go to object mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor, which is this circle right here. We now see that our orange point is here, our origin is there. Now we can create a mirror modifier, and we're gonna mirror it on the Z axis. Remove the X one, and we also turn on clipping. Now if you want, we can move this up, and you see everything is mirrored. Great. Adding this stick of a tomato slice is good. We can add now a subdivision surface, shade smooth. Now this isn't as visible, so let's just select the outer edge and the upper ones with Shift and Alt. Now up, you can see these are now more prominent. And I think all we have left is cheese slice. So let's move all this to the side, and we're actually gonna make a float simulation. We have our patty here. Let's reduce one level just so the simulation is smoother. Shift A plane, and I feel like the cheese should be smaller. A, subdivided maybe 3 times, and we can now go to physics and float. If we wanted to interact with the patty, we can go here and collision, and now if we press play, you can see it interacts, but that's not as good, so we're gonna make it bigger. Maybe add one more subdivision. Okay, yeah, alright, that looks good. Can rotate it a bit, make it a bit unnatural. Maybe if we take one edge, go to proportional editing, and with scroll you can see how much it affects. So let's make it a bit unnatural. No, not so perfect. Yeah, that's a lot better. Okay, now if you like it in this position, we can go convert, mesh, and now it's not a cloud. You can see if you press play, it's just as it is. Let's set the origin to its geometry. Return back the levels of subdivision. You can see now it's clipping a bit, so let's move it up and scale it up. You can turn off the proportional editing. And again, it's not thick, so we're gonna first add subdivision surface. One level is good. And solidify. Let's increase it. We can return the letters, maybe make it smaller. Return the tomato, again a bit smaller, and top of all that, the upper patty. Now we're gonna add some seeds to the top. It's gonna be easy and quick. You can add Shift A, cube, and just one subdivision. Alt Shift S, which is something I didn't know, but it's a cool shortcut. And let's shade it smooth, take one vertice, proportional editing, and move it to the side a bit so it's shaped like a C. Now I want to apply this, okay, and we're gonna actually use a particle system. Let's click on this and let's go to here, and if we go to the bottom you can actually see vertex groups, and one is for density, and because we don't want seeds all over the place, even under the cut, we're gonna add a vertex group for the density. That's easily done by going to data and adding a new group. We're gonna name it density seeds, for example, and now we go to edit mode and we can select the faces we want seeds on, like this. Feel like all these should have seeds, so we're gonna assign them, right? We're gonna go back to the particle system and select density. Alright, we can see no longer have seeds under, so but we don't want hairs, we want seeds. We go under the render section and change this to object, and we're gonna instance this object right here. See, they're too big, so let's reduce the hair length around something like this, and the number feel like should be less. Just copy body and yeah, move it under. Now we have all this. Let's color it. We're gonna start with the body, change the material to body, and we'll change the color to something like this, something more brownish orange. We don't see our material, so we go to viewport shading. Now that looks a lot better. You can also change how the lighting occurs. Okay, roughness should be kind of rough, but yeah, the seeds can actually add materials to the seed, something lighter. Now for the body, we can go to shading because it's gonna be a bit more complex, which actually reminds me that it's really hard to learn Blender on your own, but you shouldn't feel alone. That's why I would recommend Skillshare, today's sponsor, which makes it so much easier. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, offering thousands of classes across topics like 3D, modeling, design, and productivity. One class I'd recommend is Your First Day in Blender 3D, where Sunan Shodi 3D breaks down Blender's tools in a simple and practical way. It's perfect for beginners or anyone looking to improve their skills. And there are a bunch of other Blender and non-Blender courses. Plus, Skillshare's lessons let you learn at your own pace, which is great when tackling complex softwares like Blender. And here's the best part. The first 500 people to use my link in the descriptions will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So why not start learning today and take your creativity to the next level? Something brownish again. Now we can add a noise texture, which you can see if we plug it in, it creates this noise. We are actually gonna plug it into a color ramp, so we can play with the values. We can add something more brownish and something lighter. Now if you plug it in, you can see the noise it creates. It looks better. Now we're gonna make it look more bumpy, so add another color ramp. You can add a bump node and plug this into the height. Now this into the normal, and you can see the effect it creates, but it's actually the same mesh. So let's just reduce the strength. You can see without it and with it. Okay, now with cheese it's gonna be a lot simpler. You can name these materials. It's actually a bun. Cheese, yeah, something just yellow orangey. Reduce the roughness. Lettuce, green, and the tomato. Red, shiny. We're done with our materials. Now we can try and render our kinda ugly burger. So we can start setting up the scene by going to mesh plane, scaling it up even more. Now we're gonna take this edge and extrude it up. Now take this edge, Control B to bevel. You can see the effect it creates. Scroll up a bit to add more faces, not too much. Feel like this is good. Shade all the smooth, and I'll add background color. Maybe like this. We can change this later. We can create a camera if you don't already have one. If you do, just use that one. Move it around here. Now we can split the screen to see what our camera sees. Here, view, camera, and active. We made a new screen by holding down this edge, and you can remove them by sliding them back. Okay, now we see what our camera sees. I want a square resolution, so I'm gonna go here, 920 by 920. zoom in, change the rotation. We have our burger, but if you go to the render settings, you can see it's all dark. And if you haven't made your device to be GPU, we have this light because we have a world light. Reduce it to 0, don't worry about this. But we're gonna add a light and area. Okay, see how it looks better. You can also go to renders engine and be sure to add cycles, it looks better. Add it up from top, increase the strength, and you can see this creates a cool effect. Shift D, add from the side. Maybe we're gonna create a cool dramatic light here too. Okay, now these are kind of too shiny for me. Yeah, I'm just gonna play around with the settings, but I feel like this looks good. Now we have our ugly burger, but at least you learned about a lot. So yeah, thank you for watching and have a nice day. I hope I helped you. Subscribe and leave a comment. Bye bye.